is Hunter Rook, and this is by far the most popular question I get asked as a web designer is how much does it cost to make a website? And as you might imagine, it's sort of a complicated answer. It really depends. How many blog posts you have? Do you need any kind of custom code? Do you have what number of pages, what number of portfolio items? There's a lot of factors that go into it. So let's try to get real and pretend like you're Dr. Tim. He's a therapist in Seattle. He's a client of mine. And what he needed was pretty straightforward. Same thing a lot of therapists or other solo practitioners need on their site. He needed a homepage, an about page, a page with information for new clients, a page to share what insurance he takes, and contact form. Pretty simple stuff, 5 pages. So, what could Dr. Tim expect to pay? Well, that depends who's making it. There's three choices here. He could build it himself. He could hire a global freelancer through something like uh, Udesk or Fiverr or Upwork, or he could hire me. And there's pros and cons to each approach. DIY, uh, if he were to build it himself, which he wasn't planning on. He's not a very tech savvy guy. He gets frustrated easily, so this isn't his jam. But if he were to, he would have to pay about $200 a year to host the site. That's just to pay somebody to hold your files on a computer for them. That way your site can be online. But then you also have to pay for a domain name. So whatever the .com or the .org is. I think his is drtimseattle.com. So that's about $20 a year as well. Then you got to gather all your content. So what insurance do you take? You have to write the homepage text. You have to get a good headshot done. So that takes some time. Then he also has to learn both what platform he's using and how to use that platform. So whether it's Squarespace or WordPress, there is a bit of a learning curve, and that can be some frustration. Once you've learned how to do it, then it just takes, so many hours to make it. And this is going to depend on you, how comfortable you are with technology, what this equation looks like for you. For him, that wasn't really an option though. Like I said, he's not a tech guru. He's just a really nice guy. He's really good people person. So the other option he looked into was hiring a freelancer through a site like Fiverr. Now, in that case, you'd still be paying the same price for hosting and a domain name, but you'd also pay the designer. And this is a pretty wide range. You can get some good deals as low as $600, $800 for a simple site, up to 4,000, 5,000. The way it works is you put out a bid and then you have to go through all the people's responses and they give you different prices. It's sort of like eBay, you can think of it. It still takes you some time to get the content together. And then the big thing is you got to manage whoever you do hire. You got to go through all those applications and bids, find out your favorite. You got to tell them your information. You have to really be on them about the timelines and the waiting. Speaking of timelines, that's the killer for freelancers globally. You not only have a bit of a language barrier, but there's also just a general communications barrier. And then you got to wait for them to build it. And for me, this isn't worth it just because of the anxiety. I can't stand waiting, not hearing from somebody, having someone go unresponsive or drop off the face of the earth. That really sucks. And often, unfortunately, I find that when you get cheaper projects like this, you got to redo it in about a year or so. So the way the sites are built so cheaply and quickly is that there's like shortcuts that are taken. Um, and the downside of that is you can't keep all your code updated. And it's super important to update your code for security reasons. You're going to get hacked or things are just going to get out of date pretty fast. So those are the pros and cons of that. Um, if you're going with me, same deal for hosting a domain name. That's always on you. You still got to get some content together, but then it's a flat rate and you know how much it's going to cost. It's just the hiring fee. You don't got to manage me. I manage myself. So he you can look at this as just a numbers game where it's cheapest to do it yourself. It's medium cheapest to hire a freelancer, and it's the most expensive to hire an agency. But you also got to factor in the time and your effort because that stuff's valuable. So DIY is not as much money, but a lot more time, both in learning the program and effort and sometimes frustration in building the site. Freelancers, medium amount of dollars invested, a good amount of time still though. Between the back and forths, the revisions, it can be quite a bit of project management time and waiting time. I've noticed that freelancers, maybe 3 times out of 4, won't produce on a deadline because there's no reason, there's nothing keeping them honest. With me, you could write a bad Yelp review, so I'm really motivated to do a good job for you on deadline. So with me, it's a bit more expensive, but much less management time, much less frustration and effort time. So make sure as you're doing your cost benefit pros and cons, do whatever works for you. Just make sure you're taking everything into consideration. Maybe you have maybe you're cash poor right now, but there's a lot of time on your hands. You think it'd be fun to learn a new skill. DIY would be a great approach for you. So yeah, everyone's got different priorities, and no matter which option you choose, there's a way I can support you. So Dr. Tim, real client, here's what his site looks like. You can see those 5 pages up top in the menu. And his homepage scrolls a bit. This site cost $1,800 to build. Now, I am not the only web designer in town. There's certainly other agencies around. And you might be asking, well, what's my pricing? Is that middle of the road? Is that cheap for the Bay Area, or is that expensive? When I've done some research, it seems like I'm actually a little bit on the cheap side, which is weird. Typically 100 to 350 an hour. Another person says 2 to 250, 75 to 500. It's a pretty big range based on experience. So Bay Area is one of the most expensive places to live, and there's a big demand for web design. So it's not the cheapest place to hire. And the other thing I found, which is frustrating, is that when you go to other agencies in the Bay Area and you try to get a quote on their site, they don't tell you how much a website costs. It's so frustrating. So you got to really do like 6 or 7 different consults just to get a sense of what these different agencies are going to charge you. They won't even give you a number until you have a consult with them. Their get a quote is really just a contact form. So you see this a lot with Bay Area web design. And the reason is they want to know how much you can pay, and that's how much they're going to charge you. It's not based on their time. I have a kind of a different approach. I say my rates really obviously. So if you want a small site, you can expect it to start at 1,800 for up to 5 pages. If you want more pages or special features, you can add those on. I also have discounts for nonprofits and BIPOC folks. So you can use this slider and get yourself an instant quote on my site. It's a new feature that I'm trying out, so that way people can have a good sense. And these are real estimates. The only thing I can't guess is the number of edits hours everyone wants, because everyone's different. But usually people are happy with 1 to 2 hours of edits and about an hour to 3 hours of training. So yeah, depending on the number of pages you need, you can get a really good ballpark figure for what your site's going to cost if you're going with me. And if you're not going with me, I can still help. I love helping people. That's what I do. So if you're going to DIY it, take advantage of my free 30-minute consultations. I'll help you choose Squarespace versus WordPress. I can also help you with a tutoring session so that you learn the ropes a little bit faster than if you were trying to learn by yourself. And then any kind of, usually I have DIYers keep a list of whatever they're frustrated by or things that they can't figure out how to do on their own. And then we meet together for one more 1 to 2 hour tutoring session at the end of their project, and we wrap up those things together. Now, if you're hiring overseas, a freelancer through a site like Fiverr or Upwork, please do get a consult. I'll tell you my advice. I've hired probably dozens of freelancers through sites like those, and I can tell you what to look out for. I can also check under the hood after delivery, just like you wouldn't buy a car without having an independent mechanic you trust take a look at it. I can look at the code of the site that they're providing and make sure it doesn't have those red flags of things that will make it unable to be updated. And then any kind of edits you want made after the fact. A lot of times it's hard to find those original designers. They kind of disappear on you. People don't want to edit other people's websites. Typically, it's just not a good moneymaker, but I'll help you out. If you go through me, still take advantage of the free 30-minute consultation. I'll write you up an accurate quote and do the whole design and development for you. I can also connect you with other great professionals if you need a referral for a photographer or videographer or copywriter. And then afterwards, I have maintenance packages, or you can pay for your edits hourly. I like to stand by my work and make sure you stay up to date. So the best way to start a conversation, no matter if you're DIYing it or hiring someplace else for a cheaper price, is to grab a free 30-minute consultation. We'll meet over Zoom or on the phone, and it's just a great link to share with people, writingfairdesign.com/book to get